Good morning and welcome everyone to the latest in a series of Family Business Insight webinars run by Family Business United. I am delighted this morning to be joined by Jake Karia, who's the Managing Director of Jake & Names, part of the food attraction brand in Leicester. So good morning, Jake.
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to see you, and look forward to hearing some of your story this morning, which I know will be of inspirational insight to our audience. Please use the chat function if you have any questions, which we'll use throughout the session. In the meantime, let's start, Jake, can you just explain a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So I'm MD and founder of Food Attraction. We're a food manufacturing business. We've got 3 factories here in Leicester, we're employing about 105 staff. We manufacture a whole array of different things. We've got ready meals, finger foods, starters, all at the premium end of the market. But we were supplying high street restaurant chains, pub chains, hotel chains, and I say we were, airlines and railways, education sector. And then we launched the Jake & Names brand that you see behind me over there about a year and a half ago now. And that's in Sainsbury's, Co-op, Nissa, Spa, and quite a lot of the convenience sector.
And we met last year actually, judging together the awards, the Amazon Business Awards, and I was inspired by your story. I know it didn't start a year and a half ago. So if you go back to the very beginning, what was the inspiration? Why did you start a food business?
Okay, well, as long as people don't judge me, I'll tell you, I used to be an estate agent back in a place called Leighton Buzzard. And coming from Leicester, you don't realise that actually when you leave the hub that is Leicester, you then realise actually ethnic food isn't as vastly available, and certainly not to the standards that we have here in Leicester everywhere else. So I had an office over in Leighton Buzzard. Used to come to visit my mum at weekends over here in Leicester, and every time I came down, her favourite son, me, don't tell my brother that, but she'd cook for me, and whatever was left over I'd take back to the office with me. But as soon as I got to the office and I opened my lunchbox, all my staff would devour everything that was in my lunchbox because it was so tasty compared to what they could buy over there. Then got to the point where people were saying to me, Jake, if you're seeing your mum, do you think I could get a dozen samosas or some bhajis or whatever, which mum found endearing initially.
Yeah.
After the sort of second or third or fourth week, it was like, do you really have to come down and see me? And she spent the whole weekend in the kitchen making food that I was then selling to friends. Then I got to a point and I started buying it from a local deli and then selling it out to friends and stuff. And that effectively got to a point where I was selling food out the boot of my car, and I thought, this isn't right. Do bear in mind, this was around the late 90s this was. So the business had developed to very much a hobby business because I just love really, 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 really good food, and I love eating. I didn't stand up because then you'll see exactly how it's affected me now. Needless to say, I'll breathe out after this video is finished. I then got to a point where I said to my wife, look, my earnings are undulating all the time. They're up and down in the estate agency. We were just coming out of the recession, the late 80s recession, and the market was still changing. So I said to my wife, look, I really want to do something to supplement my income. Love good food. Mum's food selling really, really well. So I continued putting people in touch together and making a very, very small margin. Then my brother went for a job interview. He was studying at University of North London. He's actually my business partner now. He was studying in University of North London. Went to Harvey Nicks for a job interview on their fromagerie counter. Whilst he was there, he got asked the question, have you ever worked in food before? And my brother said, actually, yeah, I've worked for my brother. So at this point now, we've got a tiny 500 square foot unit, probably no bigger than a double garage. In there, we were making food by hand. My wife and I would come back from Leighton Buzzard to Leicester on a Friday night at 7 o'clock. We'd go straight to the unit. We'd marinate the meat, prepare all the vegetables till about 2 o'clock in the morning, go back to my parents' house, sleep, then go back to the unit again about 10:30 because we shared the unit with the Meals on Wheels business. And then we'd be literally hand making samosas and bhajis and spring rolls and whatever else till about 2-3 o'clock the following morning. Back to my parents' house, back again on Sunday morning. We'd be there finishing it all off, freezing it all down. We bought these big freezers from Iceland, and we were storing all the product and freezing it all down in there. And then I'd spend the week on the phone, my little Filofax and my little mobile phone that didn't accept text messages. There were no emails back then either. And selling the product on.
So really, the true entrepreneurial spirit's kicked in. You're working 24 hours a day almost, building something up with your wife and your family. So it's a real family business at the core. Is your mum still involved today? Chief taster?
Yeah, no, she feeds us considerably. I mean, through this quarantine process, she's so bored at home. She's trying out all these new recipes, and I have to pick up the recipes. So no matter what diet I decide to impose on myself at home, it gets thrown completely out the window in there. But all of her food is still so good. But I do run recipes by her still, and for me, certainly the vegan dishes, if she tries it, she likes it. I know I'm onto a winner. But you know what? Being a family business, there is still that hierarchy within the family. Mum and dad, thankfully, are still with us. The business is run by three of us, and myself, my brother, and my wife in here. And mum and dad still oversee what we do. And quite often we'll get together at Christmas or Diwali or whatever. And mum and dad say, we're really proud of you. And as far as I'm concerned, and I want to say, we are who they made us at the end of the day. So yeah, mum and dad are still involved from a paternal point of view, not from a business point of view.
So the hobby started out, you were growing, working at weekends. The next stage, obviously, to invest and to grow and to take on your own premises. What are the biggest challenges you saw at that stage in terms of you growing the business?
Oh, Paul, raising funds. That was by far the biggest thing. And I suppose, look, you have this passion for food, right? You have this passion, you have this vision that I want everybody to be eating my food.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily compute to being an accountant or being a factory manager and things like that. You just have this central vision, and as an entrepreneur, you make things work. You pull things together, and you come across an obstacle, and then you face that obstacle, and you know that you are the be all and end all. And I'm incredibly fortunate that I have two other business partners that we can bounce things off.
Yeah.
And certainly the dynamic that I have with my brother and my wife is a fantastic one, in that I am the eternal optimist. My brother, who's the operations director, is the realist, and my wife, who handles the finances, is the pessimist. So we can sit down round a table now, and as we did back then, and actually come up with a solution, because there is this fantastic, respectful debate that obviously our parents instilled in us. But when you're at this point where you want to expand, you know you can sell more, but you're looking at it solely from the point of view that you have this idea, you have this product, you want to take it to market. It doesn't necessarily mean that your business plan is right, doesn't necessarily mean that your cash flow forecast is right, and things like that.
Yeah.
And when you go and see a bank, they want a fully polished thing in there, and you don't necessarily have those skills. And I think that's why sometimes accountants make great business people to a certain level. And if you can have that discipline within your business, then you have a winning formula. I am where I am now because of the experiences that I've been through, and I know my daughters always laugh when I say this, but I am the sum of my experiences. And I know you're going to ask me questions later on about what we've done now, but we've done what we've done now because of all the stuff that I went through, and even building the factory, putting the funding plans in place, looking at the provision, and looking at things that we did wrong. And there was a vast amount that we did wrong back then. It was, for me, it was funding. And even when we built the new factory, the factory that we're in now, we built it in 2001.
Yeah.
We opened the doors on August the 3rd. We had the Secretary of State for Trade and Industry come in and open up the factory. And this new factory is 17.5 times bigger than the old little unit was. And we opened it, and August was trading at 4.5 times up on the year before. So we knew we'd done things right. We were trading above where we were. We'd opened up the business 1 month in August. We got into the first week in September. We were now supplying Harrods, Harvinix, Selfridges, Fortnums. We were supplying all the West London hotels, the Marriott, the Jarvis hotels back then, the Hilton, Skyline, all of those. And we were in London pretty much on a daily basis. And then suddenly my brother rang me up on the 11th of September and said, have you just heard the news? These 2 towers have just been knocked down in New York. And I tried to dial up on the internet to have a look, never realized for a second what kind of impact that was going to have within our business. We lost 2/3 of our orders on that day. People just cancelled straight away.
Okay.
So we were now trading in September of 2001 at less than we were the previous year in the old unit in there. So, yeah.
Wow. So you've been through some tough times, obviously some tough times. As you said, you've learned, like most entrepreneurs would learn, through the experience, and that's helped you come on to where you are today. And we'll come on to that a little bit later on. You've also grown significantly in the last few years, I guess, in terms of, I met you last year, you won an award the year before in 2019. So you'd grown significantly up to 2019, which led to some fantastic awards. What sort of growth trajectory were you on, Jake, in terms of, was it slow and steady? Was it quite quick and unexpected? How did that all evolve? You had some great customer base, by the way, in terms of the Harvey Nicks and the lovely brands that you're working with. So I guess that must have helped.
You know what, it did, Paul, but what you've got to realize is that every time you come across a 9/11 type obstacle, it doesn't just bring your sales down, it actually takes you back. And it's not that you're starting from a level base and you're climbing back up again. What you're actually doing is digging yourself out from underground first before you can then climb on. And I know people judge businesses by their growth, and they look at year-on-year sales growth. But what you don't realize is actually you're flapping underwater like a duck, because you're trying to keep the sales base that you've already got in there, and you're never ever going to have the same customer year on year on year on year on year buying the same amount year on year on year. So you're covering those losses as well as then building that forecasting. So for me, the sales growth from 9/11, from 2001, the 9/11 issue, to where we were 2 years ago, had actually been very slow in there. But actually, in real terms, we'd actually made significant impact. It was all the issues that we'd faced over that period, because don't forget, we've been through, what, 2 recessions now during that time, and things like that. So we were constantly climbing out of it. But it was down to the diligence of my team, down to the family network that we have here, and passing that kind of atmosphere into my team here for everyone to operate above and beyond what was required within the business.
It's about strong leadership as well, isn't it?
Yes, my wife does rule me with an iron.
I know that's not the truth, not the case, but I'm sure she has a strong influence on the way things are controlled and managed. So you come up towards 2019, and I've got some numbers here in terms of 2019 for you was a record year. You've got your BRC top accreditation, your 57% growth, I think it was. Your stall is quadrupled. You're continuing to grow. You've added new products. So the future in 2019 was looking exceptional.
We grew in 2019. We bought the factory units that we're in. So we spent 7 figures in buying all the land and everything else around us here. We quadrupled our store numbers. We won 6 awards, including IGD Small Business of the Year award, which we were up against some pretty big brands, and yeah, did have a hangover the next day, I'll tell you. Yeah, but yeah, we had a phenomenal year. We grew the business by 2.1 million, as well as having let go of some accounts that weren't as profitable for us, and growing by 2.1. I think our growth was about 3.5 to 3.7 million. This year, we'd forecast a growth of about 4 million in there. I think we'll still grow this year, and I think our sales are up probably by just over 1.1 million this year, which actually, when you take into consideration what we've just been through, I don't think we've done too bad.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic to hear that you're not going to go backwards per se. And I think the point you raised there actually is quite a valid one, in terms of a lot of businesses struggle through and carry on and continue on that growth. It's all about growth, and it's the old saying, isn't it? Profit is vanity and cash is sanity. But I think a lot of family firms at the moment are looking at some of their contracts that are not maybe renewing, or whether they're having discussions, and thinking, actually, we haven't been able to do that for the last 6 weeks, but our margins are better. And it's looking at whether the business they're doing is good business as opposed to just doing business. So there's that whole looking at it strategically in terms of where they're going, which I think quite a lot of businesses are doing at the moment.
Yeah, I think for me personally, this situation, as unfortunate as it is, has allowed us to press pause, because actually it's not just us pressing pause, it's the whole world pressing pause. You know, everyone says, I wish I could take time out to review my business and stuff, but actually the world around them is still moving at 100 miles an hour. Here, everyone's come to a standstill. So pretty much by default, we've had to come in, we've had to look at where we're at. And look, I'm a seasoned business. I'm only 25. These come from running a food manufacturing business. but you learn from everything that you go through. And I think a saying that I really, really like at the moment is, look, we're not all in the same boat. You know, as much as we're going through this COVID situation, we're not in the same boat. We're in the same shitstorm, but we're not in the same boat. Everyone's got their own issues to face. You know, some people are in bigger boats, some people are in smaller boats, some people are taking in water, some people have got holes in their boats.
Yeah,
it's very different. But whichever way you look at it, there is this prevailing storm that's above us. We've all got to take different actions to try and get through in it. And there are going to be some winners, there are going to be some losers, but you know, you cannot be complacent over it. You've got to sit down and you've got to look at the minutiae of the detail, because actually you actually have the time to do it now.
mm-hmm.
And that needs to happen. Don't get depressed about it, because you do that, you bury your head in the sand, it's just going to wash over you. You need to be sitting there investigating your business, interrogating it, and don't be benevolent over it.
I think that's very true actually as well, Jake. And I think a lot of people have used the time, to be honest, for maybe the first time, in terms of, if you look at the advisory world out there supporting businesses and offering helplines and peer group sessions and all sorts of groups coming together to let business owners talk to each other. The value comes when you're honest and you just admit, actually, you know, our back's against the wall, we've lost A, B and C, but what can we do, and share knowledge between each other, which I think is a really healthy environment for all of us. You mentioned the current crisis, so let's come on to that now. So when lockdown hit, what were you expecting it? What had you done in advance to prepare, and how did it hit you?
So we jokingly, about 10 days before lockdown, we'd started our own. So where the government was having their Cobra meetings, we were having our own Viper meetings in here, where we have a senior management team here, and we were in the boardroom every day at 11 o'clock, just discussing action points that we were building up. And all of this was things like building up stocks of PPE, looking at splitting the teams. So actually, before lockdown came in, we'd already taken precautions over all of it. What was also happening is, before lockdown came in and all this news was going out there, all of our retail business was absolutely going through the roof. And where I look at some of the retailers that we supply into, we were doing double, triple, nearly quadruple the volume into them as people were beginning to stockpile product through. So we were having to ramp up for all of that. But at the same time, we were looking at the safety within the business. And sometimes you look at sort of hazard analysis, and you look at safety plans and contingency plans, and you have to bring in things that you'd never have thought of doing. I mean, to me, going through what we're going through at the moment, I would put on the same lines as aliens landing in my car park and taking over the world. In there, it is so far-fetched. You know, how do you build in a contingency back, you know, years ago for something like this? You just wouldn't imagine it happening. But actually, 10 days before it happened, we put the PPE in place. We locked out the courtyard, so actually no vehicle or person was allowed in the courtyard itself. And there's a good 50-meter walk from the courtyard entrance to the front door of the office. We put a doorbell in place. People were having their hands sanitized, their shoes sanitized. We had a thermal temperature gauge, so we were checking everyone's temperature before they came in, and questionnaires. So we were very particular. And what that then meant is, when we did go into lockdown, and suddenly Boris put the fear of God into people and said, you know, this is where we're at. I didn't actually have very many issues with staff not wanting to come back into work, because they could see that we cared about them and that actually we'd put provision in place.
Yeah. Which is what family firms do. They care about their staff, don't they? And it leads to difficult conversations when you have to let them go, which we can come on to. I know from talking to you or hearing from you in a webinar previously that day one hit and you lost 60% of your business overnight. So that must have been really difficult to deal with, and it's probably still difficult to deal with. And then the difficult decisions that then entailed. What can you share with us, some of the things that you had to do?
All of our food service business. So where we were supplying the major wholesalers, we had orders that were actually produced that had been shipped, and then suddenly on Tuesday we were getting phone calls from hauliers to say, look, we've tried to deliver this stock, but the warehouse won't accept it. And as much as under normal circumstances you have a PO, a purchase order that comes over, you produce against a purchase order, you ship against, and that forms a contractual basis in there. They were saying to us, look, we're just not going to take that stock. You know, you can do whatever you want, but we're just not taking that stock. So this was money that we'd already laid out.
Yeah.
All of our airline business, all of our railway business, all of our education sector business, all of that dropped off the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, and that's a story that resonates with a lot of other food producers, I think, around the country.
Yeah, it does. And on the day that we went into lockdown, we had to have some tough conversations. We had to sit there, look at our cash flow forecast, take all those things out of our cash flow forecast, take the growth that we were hoping for out of the cash flow forecast,
Yeah.
put some of the expansion plans, of which there were quite a few in there, on the back burner. And then unfortunately, I had to put staff on furlough in there, which, the government scheme of supporting 80% was just a massive lifesaver. I don't know what we would have done had that not happened in there. I think probably redundancies would have ensued. But we put staff on furlough. We then split teams as well. So we had we split the factory team into two. We split the management team into two. So they weren't really crossing each other. So if the virus did break out within the business, only half the business was actually affected.
Okay, which makes sense. How have things evolved then? As we've been in lockdown for 6 weeks, we're just starting to come out, and I guess food service hasn't really been fully locked down because you've been able to continue doing some business and to continue to produce. What have you been doing differently in the last couple of weeks in terms of how is it beginning to come around and come out the other side for you?
I think we've recovered probably about 2/3 of our business back.
Wow.
It was, going back to the 9/11 days, the 2001, we had a nucleus of business that was central London. And actually, when 9/11 happened and we realized how fragile our business model was at the time, we decided to spread ourselves right across the sector. So we went from doing just finger foods into ready meals as well as finger foods. We went into different geographical areas. We went food service and we went retail. So we had a fairly even spread across the sector. So when this all happened, although we lost all of our food service business, actually our retail business climbed quite significantly. We didn't back off on our marketing as well. So we kept our marketing going, driving people to the stores, getting people to buy our products in there. So that managed to get us through. That's still growing now. And as people are slowly going back to work and things like that, we're seeing that some of the food service business is starting to shift, but there's such a glut of stock in there. I think it's going to take many months before they start to reorder that stuff back. And then there were certain contracts that we'd been working on previously. And you know what, just picking up the phone to a buyer just to say, hi, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to see how you were, because we have a business relationship. I get that, but I want our business relationship to be more than that. So I'm just ringing to see how you are. Meant that we've actually managed to secure a contract now that was double where it was over double actually where it was the year before. So the losses that we would have made in April, actually we would have recovered back. So I think year on year, the business will have still grown. We will still have added on over £1 million worth of new business in there. And I get that that's not the story that's probably out there at the moment. But like I said, we're the sum of our experiences, and it's those things that we've been through that have made us who we are today.
And you talked about your staff. Obviously, staff are really important in terms of food production. You need the staff to do the work. How easy has it been to encourage people? Because 80% furlough is quite a nice amount of money coming in without having to leave a house to go to work. And there's a lot of talk at the moment about staff not wanting to go back, scared of the virus, scared of their environment. How easy has it been for you to encourage people to come back to work to support the effort?
I don't think I've had any problem with that. I think because we put the steps in place with the abundance of PPE that was available to all of our staff, and actually we gave stuff for them to take home for their families as well in there, and showing the procedures that we put into place here. I don't think anybody feels unsafe actually coming into the premises. So everybody that we've started to bring back off of furlough. And the one thing you've got to bear in mind is that it's not just about the financial situation that you've got to be mindful of with the staff that you put on furlough. Some of it's about their mental state, some of it's their family state, and all sorts of things like that. And being a small-ish family business in there, you start to understand what people are about. And certainly myself, brother, and my wife took it upon ourselves every single week to ring these guys to see how they are, to make sure they're okay. We all had WhatsApp groups that we were communicating through, so they still felt a part of the business in there. So that was really, really important. Look, as a business here, we have a breakfast club. So every day, chef cooks breakfast for us. We sit down just for 15 minutes in the morning, and we'll have a quick cooked breakfast, an omelette or whatever else together. And it meant that we were building those bonds. And on a Friday, we have a Friday lunch that I pay for. We'd either get a takeaway or we'd pull something from the factory. But you sit down for half an hour, you don't talk about work. All you do is you eat, and you talk about anything else other than work. It generally tends to be taking the mickey out the last person to join the business. And then either the boys wash up or the girls wash up. But everybody downs tools for half an hour. And all those things build that foundation. And look, I'm the founder, I'm the MD of the business. I have a certain personality. That personality then starts to resonate through the business, and that vision suddenly doesn't become my vision, it becomes the business's vision. Yeah. And I always say that, look, business is what it is because of the people that are in that business, and the business is the sum of its parts. We have a big poster as you enter our business here, with the Jake and Names logo in the middle, and then around it there are, I think, 2 things or 3 things that each of us have picked that symbolize us. So there's bottles of rum, there's sports cars, and there's holidays, and there's all sorts of things. And then we put that around Jake and Names logo to say that the logo is the amalgamation of all of these personalities and what it means for those personalities in there. And people walk past that every time they walk in. So it's not just my business, it's everybody else's business in there. And I guess I can do that because we're a family business. I don't think you'd be able to do that in a corporate business.
I think a lot of corporates try, but they don't have that shared purpose and vision, and they don't have the founder's dream and that passion that I think is evident when I talk to you and I talk to other family business owners. It made me smile when you said that you do lunch on a Friday, because I know there's a lady listing up in Glasgow that makes soup every day for her team, and it's a very much family business food culture that's out there. The following you mentioned was hard for you to take that decision, but I guess in a way you've helped safeguard those jobs, so you're going to bring them back. It's great to hear you talk about mental health as well, because I think it's on the agenda for a lot of people that have been furloughed, that they feel maybe less responsible, less of a contributor, and actually they don't appreciate maybe that they're giving up their job temporarily, but the financial impact of that on the business is going to help it survive. And it's great that you've encouraged them to be part of that team and that network and kept them involved, because I think a lot of businesses may have been struggling just to firefight and keep going, and that may have gone by the wayside a little bit. So I think we have a mental health and staff wellbeing challenge coming forward in terms of just encouraging people to talk about how they feel and be open about coming back to work. It's really refreshing talking to you, actually, because it's not all doom and gloom. You're showing a lot of positivity. I know you're a very positive individual anyway, but a lot of positivity and a lot of opportunity. What do you see as some of the opportunities for you going forward?
So we're collaborating with a website called www.streetfoodkitchen.uk. That's streetfoodkitchen.uk, where we're putting all of our products online. Okay. I think people's buying habits are going to change. I think they say something like 67 days of a regular habit then makes it more of a normal thing. And when you think of how many days we've been in lockdown now, in there, I think a lot of things like buying online, you look at Amazon's growing by 26%, you look at Morrison's being available online and McColl's being, a lot of things like that are changing. And I think online is changing. And I think as long as you can not just put your products online, but actually make your product more accessible in their hands, where click, 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 suddenly the food's on its way, then I think there are going to be some winners from all of this. I think things are going to change. And I think it's a fool not to think things are going to change going forward. And it's those people that then don't make those differences in their business that are going to suffer.
Yeah. I had a question come in on that, Jake, just on that, to be fair. The question just come in actually saying, so on that, in terms of I guess pivoting is the word everyone's using. The question's coming saying, how did you do that? Did you do it overnight quite quickly? Was it a progressive thing, or did you just have to react? And the question is, how quickly could you react?
So the streetfoodkitchen.uk website, the whole thing was put together in 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
And if you actually have a look at the website, it doesn't look bad, to be honest. It was put together on a shoestring budget. We're adding product into it, but again, being a family business and being in touch with the whole team and not having it that we have to have board meetings and consultations and whatever else before we do anything, we can react just like that. So I came in one morning and said, listen guys, this is what we're going to do. By the afternoon, the work had already started. Again, because the staff that we have, and exactly like the pizza one that you had last week, it's that kind of insular society that you have within there, and that bigger, broader family that you have, that that helps so much.
And sorry, just clarify the name of the website for me, Jake.
It's www.streetfoodkitchen.uk.
Okay, I was just going to ask someone couldn't clearly hear you. So check out the website. Some great products. Question coming in terms of production and what you do is, has your supply chain been impacted? We've talked earlier on about flour being in short supply and other products. So you obviously make a special range of distinct products. Has your supply chain been affected, and has that caused you any issues?
No, and the reason being is that because we started our impact racing 10 days before lockdown actually started, we'd already built a massive glut of ingredients. Our stock holding when we did the month-end stock take was about 2.5 times higher than where it ought to be. Now, I get that not all businesses have that luxury from a cash flow point of view or from a storage point of view, but we were really fortunate that as we've now bought the extra factories and we had the space there, we were able to store all those ingredients in. And then what happened is that you had this massive turn just like that, because where the food service business had dropped off, all of our retail business went up. So we were able to, we bought ourselves 2 or 3 weeks worth of stock in there to carry us through, at which point everything else then slowly normalized, that the manufacturers of the ingredients or the suppliers of the core ingredients actually had a chance to build that stock back up again.
Yeah, okay.
So no, we haven't been affected.
If you could give some advice to your former self, so you said you've been through some ups and downs and 9/11 and a couple of recessions and now this. Is there anything that you would look back on and do differently, that you would say to yourself, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done that earlier?
How long have you got now? There's tons of stuff that we would have done differently. You know, we would have looked at costing a lot closer, and that's, you know, you and I were talking very briefly beforehand. This pause and this reset has allowed us to look at margin and not become busy fools, and actually looking at what's giving us profit, what isn't giving us profit, where can we be brave enough to say, look, what that is just hollow turnover. It's not actually adding to the bottom line. Let's let it go. It might mean that we have to change the days that we operate and things like that. And certainly with my staff over here, where a lot of them are working 40 to 50 to 55 hours a week, they'd rather have 30 hours a week and know that I'm in the background building that business up and we'll get back up to that time again, and be in a situation that we grind ourselves into the ground. So we've looked at margin. Our margins have improved considerably during this period in there, because we've had a time and we're doing bigger runs over shorter days. So we've changed our manufacturing process completely over here. And I think anybody now, stand back, look at your margins, look at the products that you're selling, look at the customers that you're dealing with, because I think a lot of people's true colors have actually come through where they're at the moment. You know, every product that we put out there, and we've got 60, 70,000, 80,000 units a week going out there, suddenly you realize that each item that you're selling is a risk.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that you're making the right amount of profit per risk. And if it is that people are, you know, reducing your margins right down, you're still carrying that risk of sending those 60, 70, 80,000 products out there. You know, so it's just managing all of that. And sometimes it is like with a tree or a bush that you have to trim it to allow it to be able to grow back properly.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that's what you have to do. And I think by default, we're all having to do it now. And I know when I've been through crap times before, it's easy to sit back and bury your head in the sand and think, you know what, this is really bad. I can't see myself getting out of it, whatever else. And the message that I would like to give out to people out there is, look, it is crap. It really is bad. But don't let that get to you. You know, I have a fantastic saying. There's a Rocky monologue that I like. You know, life is pretty crap sometimes, and it's going to throw you from all angles in there. But it's not how hard you get hit. It's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's what's going to make you a success in there. And you know, I'm punch drunk by now. Trust me. After all the things that we've been through, but with the team around me, with the people and their motivation with me as well, and my responsibility to these guys, keep coming at it again.
Okay, I've just got a couple more questions just before we wrap up. Does it mean more to you? I mean, I know family business means a lot to everybody, but your name is on the product, Jake and Names. Your name is there in well, I say black and white, it's in gold and black. Does that give you more of a sense of pride and determination to drive this thing through?
You know what? Absolutely not. I tell you what gives me pride and motivation is the staff that I have on my shop floor. These people respectfully, when I come in the morning, say good morning to me and things like that. My responsibility 100% is to those guys.
Yeah.
To make sure that I keep as many of those in jobs as possible through all of this, to make sure I keep their families safe and in jobs. That is my singular biggest motivation in there.
And someone's just posted a comment online. I'm not going to name them, but they've just posted that you've been the motivation they need today, and it's inspiring them to continue. And I know they're in the same boat that you're in. So just listening to you is inspiring others to make those differences, which again is tantamount to how good you are as an individual to share your story. Just thinking about you and your journey, you've talked a lot about your staff, the business, what it means, and what you've done for them. How do you balance? You live with your wife. I'm sure your daughter. Does your daughter live with you? So you've got the family unit, you've got everything involved around the kitchen table at home, you're working all hours you can. How do you take time out for Jake?
I used to go to the gym regularly in the morning. I'm not going to stand up because it's not impressive at the moment. My wife said to me the other day, she goes, you know, you wanted a body like a god. And I went, yeah. She goes, I think you've got it now. And I went, really? She goes, yeah, like Buddha. So it's not quite as impressive as it ought to be.
I feel really bad for asking the question now.
No, do you know what? I don't see a separation in there. You know, when you come to work and you're working with people that you genuinely like, that you genuinely care for, it doesn't feel that you're going into work, does it? It doesn't. You know, for me, there's no distinction of I'm going to work or I'm going home. My wife and I, so a lot of our pillow talk, and I won't go into that, but a lot of our pillow talk tends to be around work. So we tend to have a board meeting most evenings. When it came to bring your daughter to work day, my oldest daughter, who's at university now, said to me, Dad, I'm not coming to your work. And I said, why not? She said, I know all about your work, Dad. I hear everything that you and Mum say. I know all about it. Find me somewhere else. So I did. But she does plan on coming into the business in the future.
Fantastic. I think you are inspirational, Jake. We haven't got any more questions coming in. I don't want to take up any more of your time because actually the only question I've got for you left is, what's the future? What's the future hold? Where do you see the future of the business going now?
You know, I could tell you that now, but it would change in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, of course it will.
Because the market's evolving in there. All I know is I'm not going down without a fight. All I know is that we have this vision to make the business a success. So we have a destination. What we don't have is a map to get to that destination.
Yeah.
And we've hit this bump in the road, and that will set the vehicle off course for a short while. But we're still going to hit that destination. It might be the destination might be a couple of miles further down the road now. But with all these things, people are still going to eat. No one's going to. Well, I was going to say no one's going to die of starvation, but I think we've got tough times ahead of us. I think obesity is still going to be out there. Not that our food's fattening in any way, but I think it's about evolving and getting your food in people's hands as easy as possible, and making them feel that they're part of an organization or a movement in there, rather than just selling your food. Because if you think putting it on a website and it's going to suddenly start selling, it doesn't work. You need to be driving that message in. So I think food attraction and Jake and Names, I think is still going to continue growing in there. I've got 2 daughters to pay for, so it has to keep growing out there. But in what guise and in what format, I think that will just keep perpetually evolving. And that comes from the fact that, again, being a family business, I can make a decision in the morning about a new dish I want to launch. Chef will have it cooked up by lunchtime, and by the afternoon, I'm actually talking to customers over it.
Yeah, so that swift move to market, the innovation, the pride and determination to survive is all there, and you've got a strong core family values. The culture of your business is unbelievable. I think what you've done is phenomenal. I really appreciate the time that you've taken to spend your journey or share your journey with us today. As I said at the beginning, this is the second in a series of insights that will continue now throughout the year. We're finding more and more inspirational family business owners like Jake, Anne-Marie Kenny last week, 2 weeks' time, we've got Tamara from Ridgeview, the wine vineyard in Sussex, who are 25 years old this year. And again, they were entrepreneurial in setting up one of the first vineyards to produce sparkling wine in Britain. So join us for that one. All it remains for me to say is keep safe and well. And Jake, thank you so much for your time today. You've been an absolute star. Thank you very much.